Daša Stevović from Serbia, and she's the new Women's Human Rights Campaign Country Contact in Serbia. She's going to give us an update on what's happening in Serbia. So welcome, Daša, and over to you.
I'm going to start by introducing myself and the organizations that I'm a member of here in Serbia. And then I will try to go over the situation here in Serbia concerning gender identity ideology. I know that there have already been several people from Serbia speaking on WHRC panels, but I will repeat probably most of the things that those people said. There are no big new things happening here in Serbia, but there are some things that I should go over regarding gender identity in laws and government strategies. First, I will shortly introduce myself. I'm a member of a radical feminist organization called Femrevolt. This was for years, it operated as a nonprofit group, started in Croatia, but since recently it has it's just now registered as an organization, and it had developed further into a network of radical feminists, not only in Croatia, but in all the Serbo-Croatian speaking area, which is here in the Balkans. For example, also another contact person for Croatia is also another member, a president of Femrevolt. It's Ksenia Kordic. She was here on the panels, I think, several times. Also, I am one of the founding members of an LGBT organization called Lesbian and Gay Solidarity Network. It's shortly LGSM in Serbian. And this organization has just celebrated its first birthday. We were founded in September 2020. We went to Pride a week ago, so I will talk about that a bit later. That was fun. All right, so concerning the situation in Serbia, I don't think, in comparison to most of the Western countries, I don't think Serbia is yet in the type of problem that you are facing in, for example, UK or USA. But what I think is happening is that gender identity as a term has entered Serbian laws, and we are now in this weird situation between actually implementing those things, which are still not as misused as they can be and as they will be at some point in the future. There is gender identity is a phrase that is present in several laws. For example, gender equality law and anti-discrimination law. The phrase is not properly defined in either of those laws. And it's at some point, it is in direct contradiction with some other formulations in those same laws. For example, there are some protections that are women being granted on the basis of sex, and the fact that gender identity is mentioned in those same phrases in the law is directly contradicting within the same law. The phrase gender identity is not defined anywhere, not even in those sections of the law that are intended for explanation of the terms that the laws are using. And also, it's noticeable that in those laws, it's evidently not, even the people who were writing the laws are not exactly sure what they were doing with it, because you can see that they're using gender identity, and sometimes even sex interchangeably. And on a lot of places, you can just see the formulation gender or gender identity, which obviously means nothing. But I don't think Serbia is yet at a place where those phrases and those laws are actually being misused as much as they can and as much as they will be. This is, for now, this is just a Trojan horse, and it's just preparing the situation for further violations of the rights of women that can happen because of these laws. Currently, there is a public debate around the proposition for same-sex partnerships, because Serbia still doesn't have legally regulated same-sex partnership laws. This is also problematic because not only that the law also mentions the phrase gender identity, in the sense that the law protects the gender identity of both partners, which is supposed to probably mean the fact that both partners are of the same sex, but also the proposition of the law does not define homosexuality in any way. It does define it as a private matter and as like a different sexuality, which means nothing, because at some point that can be used to mean anything. Anything can be a different sexual orientation if you do not define homosexuality. Right now, because since the Pride happened a week ago, a minister of human rights and minority rights has mentioned that as soon as this law passes, and that is supposed to happen very soon, the government will move to consider a gender identity law, which was proposed to the government 2017, I think, I'm not entirely sure, by a liberal democratic party. Nothing happened with the law at that point. It wasn't even on a public debate, but it exists somewhere. It was proposed to the government. That law is also, it's nothing new. It does introduce gender identity to the legislative, but we'll already have it in other laws. But at some point, that proposition will also come to the attention of the government and the public debate. As soon as same-sex partnerships are done, and I think that's how it usually works in other countries as well. You pass the same-sex partnership law, and then all the activist forces in LGBT organizations just move to the laws concerning gender identity. Here in Serbia, this is my personal opinion, is that feminist organizations are still not as involved in the debate yet. Most of them, because the topic has just not reached them yet. We do not have strong feminist organizations that are fighting for trans ideology, except maybe for Center for Women's Studies. However, the biggest problem in this sense is LGBT organizations, which have stopped fighting for homosexuals entirely and are now pushing trans and queer agenda for the last several years, but for the last 2 years, very, very strongly. I'm not considering the LGBT organizations. This is a specific situation that Serbia is in, and it's even slightly ironic. We still haven't, for example, here in this part in Balkans. I'm not sure about the other neighboring Balkan countries. I'll check. But here in Balkans, we have it in law. We have gender identity in laws. We don't have same-sex partnerships. We have old homophobia, and old forms of misogyny are still very, very live and kicking. And we're also expected to fight these new forms of homophobia that are actually being pushed by the LGBT organizations on Pride in all of their programs and everyday activism. That's, I think, also, this is not to be forgotten. Serbia is a country that has a very, very strong surgical industry. There are a lot of there is the surgeon that does sex change surgeries, and very, very famous, and a lot of people from all around the world are actually coming to Serbia in order to change sex. And also the government does pay, not for all of it, but the government does provide for most of the money for the surgery for people here is mostly covered by the state. I'd like to briefly say what happened to Pride, but can you just tell me how much more time do I have so I don't get carried away?
You've got 10 minutes of time, so that's great. And I also wanted to ask the question, what made you realize transgender ideology was a threat? But maybe if you get time to say that, that'd be great.
Sure, it's a very, very short answer. I'm a lesbian, so I saw what LGBT circles here in Belgrade look like, which is very, I mean, at some point it became funny. We have like trans activists here started pushing it in 2018. It was a big debate within leftist spaces because I'm also a socialist. At some point overnight, it became this very, very big debate. Everybody was involved in it. People made lists of TERFs. I had no idea I was a TERF until I got on one of those lists. I just wrote a tweet. It was a whole shit show. Sorry. Anyway, I mean, I started reading about it at that point a couple of years ago, but nobody I didn't expect it to blow up overnight in Serbia, where we're still fighting homophobic violence on streets, literally. Which actually brings me to Pride that happened a week ago. As I mentioned, I'm a member of a lesbian and gay solidarity network. We started. We agreed that we at some point we agreed that we do want to go to Pride, even though we are not entirely welcome there, and we were told that we're not. But gender identity issues are not the only problem with the organizers of Pride. They're not working on behalf of homosexuals. They're not representing homosexuals for a while now. Pride is not what Pride is supposed to be here in Belgrade. It's just a party in the middle of the city with a lot of police. A lot of homosexuals do not feel represented by Pride for many reasons. But at some point, obviously, queer ideology kicked in. There is not a single lesbian in the organization of Pride. And it's male crew organizing a party once a year. That's it. So we decided that we do want to go to Pride in our own block, and we decided that we will go if there is enough people so that we are safe. There were 19 of us, which I think was very good for our first try. We went and we had our own slogans, and at some point there were several situations that happened. At first, we had a crash with the police because Pride is a highly guarded event here in Belgrade. You cannot reach Pride. You have to go through several cordons of police in order to get to Pride, and the government is claiming it's a safe event. Why do we have that much police then if the government can provide the safe Pride? And also, if government officials are welcome guests at Pride, who are we protesting against? Who are we? What does the Pride want? What are the demands? What are the principles that it stands on? We have no idea anymore in Belgrade. So after the police asked us for our IDs and everything, it was a whole situation. They were threatening to take us to the police station. And later, when we actually managed to get to the Pride gate, we had our first incident where one of the slogans, the transparents, was taken away from us. A friend was actually a friend from the French group Resistance Lesbian was there with us. She has more experience in crashing prides with Get the L Out and obviously the French group. And she had a slogan that said, trans ideology erases lesbians. And of course, that was immediately taken away from us. We could enter the pride, but without that one. We managed to get lesbian, not queer in. That's something. The organizers could not explain why we're not allowed to take that one in. And inside of the pride, the funniest thing that happened is that obviously the organizers have sent private security to try to kick us out or take away our slogans. They didn't manage. And then they sent their own personal volunteers who were securing the pride to block all of our slogans during the walk, which is when you understand what happened, it's really funny because on Pride, some people, most of them even straight, were blocking our slogan that said proudly homosexual, which is, it does explain all it does in a brief episode explain what Belgrade Pride has become. If you are blocking, if straight couples are blocking slogans that say proudly homosexual or against conversion therapies, we had a slogan that said against conversion therapies. They had a giant problem with that, which is really funny. You know where Belgrade Pride stands, and it's not on the side of homosexuals, and it's not on the side of women. It's on the side of queer theory and profit that comes with the dominant ideology that is gender identity ideology in this case. I think I've managed to cover everything. If you have any other questions, if I have time, please let me know.
So I have one question, and then and then we can have more questions at the end. My question is that when Olga came on about a year ago from Serbia, she told us that there were some of the left-wing organizations, the old communist sort of materialist Marxists, who were supportive of women's sex-based rights because they believe in materialism. And we have quite a few Serbian left-wing organizations having signed the declaration. They're pretty much the only political parties or political groups. And do you know any of them, or do you know where they are? Are they sticking to their materialist guns at the moment?
Okay, yeah, we are lucky that a lot of we do not have a official. It's an activist type of left wing, and left wing is not strong here in the political sense. But I think that we do have a strong organizations in that sense. And yes, we are lucky that an important part of left wing here in Serbia hadn't forgotten on their Marxist materialistic stance in this debate. Also, the same goes for feminist organizations. I think I don't know how to explain you shortly how that happened, but there is support still from the left and the older feminist organizations. A lot of things have happened there, and people have switched, organizations have broken. But yes, you are right, and what Olga said is true. For example, right now, on a camp, one socialist organization called the Workers' Voice, one radical feminist organization, Femrevolt, and anti-fascist choir, Our Song. We are holding a camp. And this morning I held a discussion on declaration for women's sex-based rights and this campaign, WHRC, and we spoke about gender identity laws, surrogacy, Nordic model, and so on.